Two Brewers Yukon Single Malt Whiskey Release 12 Peated. Should you get this one? Stay tuned for the Whiskey Whistle. Hey all my whiskey curious friends, Mark here from Whiskey Whistle, your wise choice in independent whiskey and spirits reviews, bringing you Two Brewers Release 12 Peated, a peated Canadian whiskey. This is a peated Yukon single malt whiskey, and this comes thanks to Two Brewers themselves, courtesy of Dave Gardner. So Dave Gardner, thank you very much for the selection you've sent me and for the gorgeous t-shirt. I'm really excited about that. Love the t-shirt. Thank you very much. Release number 12 peated. Let's get that poured. This one is really special. And what I noticed off the cuff with no information, this is how I like to roll. I like to roll with no information when I first go into a whiskey. I don't read about it. I don't study it first. I just jump in there with my nose and my palate, and I let the whiskey do the talking, and then I check it out afterwards. So that's what I've done, and what I said in the live stream as I pour this just a few days ago is that this is the most peated of the peated Two Brewers yet. And they've had about 3 peated releases. They've had release number 3, number 7, and now number 12. So they've had 3 releases of peat. I had the first one, number 3, and I don't think I had the next one, which is number 7. And so now coming into number 12. So I guess I'm only comparing. Did I try number 7? You know, I might have. I just can't. I'll have to check. But maybe I did. I kind of remember what they wrote there, the s'mores. But anyway, whether or not I've had 2 or 3, I thought to myself, this is way peatier than anything they've put out yet. And I mentioned this was maybe similar to something like Macri Moore, which is peated to about 20 ppm. Oh yeah, that's gorgeous. Okay, let's have a look at the color first of all of that release 12. What do you see there for color? Again, a nice light hue. This one's actually slightly darker than number 11, so that's interesting. So that may be a cask influence or an age influence or both. And the legs, as we like to always check out here on Whiskey Whistle, it's part of the enjoyment of whiskey, checking out how things look. When you think about experiencing anything, you experience it with all senses. So if you just skip looking at the color or the juiciness, the thickness of the whiskey with your glass, you're missing out on one whole sense. Anyway, let's look at these. You know, a little less viscous than that Munich Malt release number 11. As one might expect, that Munich Malt has a huge impact on the whiskey. And if anybody tells you that strain of barley or malting process or the particular farm where the barley comes from, if they say it does not have an effect on the whiskey, they are downright fibbing to you. They're lying. It has a big effect. Now, it may not have an effect once you have stripped it or had a very minimal cut in your whiskey, or if the person enjoying the whiskey simply dumps some Coke into it or shoots it back really quick, yeah, they may not notice. But for us real whiskey lovers, yes, absolutely makes a difference. Anyway, so this one's peated. Huge peat here. Let's get into the nose. Beautiful, sweet peat. Now that may tell me that this may have some extra cask influence here. There could be some sherry casks involved, and I think my nose is telling me that yes, there is. First fill bourbon for sure, if not some nice European casks. They're going to have some casks that they have to reuse, so we'll see some probably interesting peaty whiskeys done in second fill sherry casks. This is probably a bit of first fill sherry, I'm thinking, and maybe a bit of bourbon. A little bit of new oak? That's a possibility as well. It's hard to say when you're sort of going in blind. But I'm going to stick to my guns and say a bit of sherry and a bit of bourbon. Maybe about 4-to-1, 4 bourbon, 1 sherry. Oh, maybe half and half? This is nice. There's a minty smokiness to this. And there's also a bit of this dried fruit, something going on there. Dried apples, dried pineapples, a bit of not prunes. Dried currants. And the peat is brooding. And again, not like big Ardbeg or Kulila. This is more like more lightly peated Beaumont, or as I mentioned, Macrimur from the Isle of Arran, the Arran Malt distillers. And it's coming off as charred firewood. A little bit of smoked fruits. Slightly like the smoker after you've sort of gotten everything out of there, and it still has that little bit of a smoked smell to it. And yet still there's that savory note in there, that absolute distillery character is still there. Anyway, I love smelling this. It's beautiful. But let's get into the palate, shall we? Cheers, everybody, and cheers again to Two Brewers. Very peppery, a little bit sooty. On the palate, I'm getting more straight up light maltiness, smoked apples, a hint of grilled pineapple, The nose is telling me there's sherry. The palate's telling me there is bourbon. I don't think there's much in the way of new oak here. It's a little bit piquant on the palate, a little bit dry, a dryness and that pepperiness is giving this a real, I want to say kind of like a Talisker style of peaty whiskey. Hmm. This one, by the way, also 43%, and a fairly big batch of 1,620 bottles. So that should make that fairly accessible throughout, I think, mostly Western Canada, BC and Alberta. I know they have done some releases in Quebec already for the SAQ, SAQ. Okay, now let's add a bit of water. The finish also very long, peppery, appley. And that savory note is a little bit minimized in this release, and it's really a dead ringer for a young Talisker. There's a Talisker 8-year-old out that I'm dying to try, and I'm guessing that this would be very similar. This is, however, a bit drier than Talisker. Talisker offering some sweetness. This is a little bit more dry and peppery, which I like. This is very nice. I do like it a lot. Okay, with water, let that settle for a minute. Should I put a little lid on there for a little while? Go like that. That little lid is from Roy over at Aquavite. Hi, Roy. And make sure you check out WhiskyTube, the hashtag WhiskyTube. This is a collection of, well, definitely some of the best whiskey-themed channels on YouTube. Now, there's been a just massive influx of whiskey-themed YouTube channels. So I think these chums of mine and I think we're going to have to do something to differentiate ourselves, because yeah, it's just really crowded, and there's some people that have definite marketing savvy, I should say, which means that if they have marketing savvy and they have let's say not coding, but let's say internet savvy, search engine optimization savvy, then that means that their reviews will do really well. And some of them are fantastic. One new channel that I think everybody can agree is doing very well is Sipper's Social Club, Jeremy. So amazing job he's doing. I think I've mentioned that before. And there's a Danish fellow named Matt. I think Matt. Anyway, Matt over in Denmark. His channel is called Caskmate, I think. Caskmates. Okay, I think that's had enough of a cover. You can see the whiskey steam developing in there. And that really accentuates, when you do that, really accentuates the nose. It really builds it up. Really warm, peaty, dry, slightly appley, just delicious nose. All right, the palate then. Cheers again. With water added, that mintiness is returned. A little bit sweeter, not quite as dry in this case. Interesting. This will stand up against medium peated whiskeys. Not quite lightly peated whiskeys. You know, when people think of unpeated whiskeys, in fact, most unpeated whiskeys are peated, just to a very, very low ppm, parts per million. Medium peated whiskeys, for example, Ben Romach, and some of the things that Ben Riach are doing, actually very peaty. Ardmore does some medium peated whiskeys. I have one over here. This is Legacy. So a little bit of peat, medium peat, not like their bigger peaty whiskeys. Lecheg is very peaty. Macklemore is a medium peat. Bowmore is a medium peat, but almost medium heavy. And then we have Ardbeg and Kulila and Lefroy that do very, very peaty. And then we have the upper end of peat, which are things like Octomore from Bruichladdich Distillery. Bruichladdich. So anyway, breadth of peat. This is beautiful because this will just appeal to the current generation, which is just in love with peat. And yes, I'm in love with this whiskey. Beautiful. All right, well, it's time for the Whiskey Whistle Whiskey Score for release number 12, Peated. Now, excellent whiskey. I don't know if I can say that. I love the fact that it's more heavily peated, so that's really cool. And I'd like to see even more heavily peated releases from Two Brewers over at Yukon Spirits. So I'm going to give this an 86 out of 100. 86 out of 100 is the Whiskey Whistle Whiskey Score for release 12 from Two Brewers. Excellent. Now, you may think, okay, oh, he didn't like this as much. No, I love this. It's fantastic. And there are tons of whiskeys, tons of 10, 12-year-old whiskeys that are inferior to this. And I think in terms of the whiskey scores, I think I gave Macallan 12 an 87. I'm giving this an 86. I think I gave Glenmorangie 10 an 89 way back when, and I think it still deserves 89. I think I repeated the score more recently. I reviewed that anyway. Beautiful whiskey, 86. Great score for an excellent whiskey. Check out twobrewers.com to find out more about Two Brewers and seeing if you can get yourself one somehow. Okay? All right. Anyway, thanks so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click that bell up there so that you're notified of all the whiskey whistles. And jump in on Patreon. Patreon.com/whiskywhistle. Become a patron. There's some great benefits for you if you become a member. And some interesting things coming very soon, all right? Take care, everybody. We'll see you for the next one. Ciao. Thanks for watching Whiskey Whistle. Be sure to subscribe. And don't forget to give this video a like. And leave a comment down below. Be sure to stay tuned next time to join me, the host of the show, Mark, as I explore more whiskeys with you. Take care now, and we'll see you next time.